Okay, welcome back to Shifting Views with Willis. Today we're going to be discussing innovation, but setting your own path from a leading point of view. And I think this is really interesting because typically organizations are all watching each other out within the same sector, and it's like, how are they advancing? What are they doing? Are we keeping up with them? Are we on par with them? But you think that's probably the wrong approach.
I'll caveat that in a minute. But yeah, fundamentally, we tend to obsess about what our competitors do, keep a really close eye on them. If they do something, then we must get back to parity with them. And to me, that's the wrong approach to innovation. If you really do know your sector and your market, and particularly your customer, really, really well, you should be able to forge your own path forward without having to just see what our competitors are doing. And that will naturally lead you into different areas and create different types of value. Like, I'm not saying don't copy what your competitors do, because there's nothing wrong with copying an innovation, and if it gives you a quick idea or a fast win, then absolutely do that. But equally, just don't be obsessed by what your competitors do.
Well, I think it's balance, isn't it? Because when you say copying your competitors, if you used to take, say, supermarket chains, like when someone brings out a self-serve checkout, logically, all the other supermarkets are going to bring out a self-serve checkout because they're essentially keeping up with the market pace of the way people are shopping and whatever. So to some extent, you need to be watching the market and saying, look, are we offering the same amount of value that they're offering, and are we adding the value that the customer wants? The other side of the coin there is innovation. If you're actually trying to forge new paths or try and take it in a new direction, then watching what your competitors are doing is probably not the best stimulus.
No. Well, that's a perfect example when, with a self checkout. I mean, it becomes a hygiene factor in the business, doesn't it? And so everyone has to rise up to that hygiene factor, and that's just driving improvement and quality in that sector, which is cool. But equally, it is innovation because it's adding value to the organization, but it's not a radical new idea, and it's not driving that business forward. It's not differentiating what they do. By definition, they're just keeping up with their competitors. So for me, most of our innovation effort shouldn't be blinded by what our competitors are doing. We obviously need to keep an eye on that, but we also need to be thinking, without all of that knowledge, what's the best thing for our customer and market, and try not to let that pollute our ideas, so that we can have these a wide portfolio of innovation. So we have the easy wins, the quick wins, which are often done by copying competitors and just slowly incremental changes. But if we're going to do these radical ideas, we're not going to get into that radical sphere of innovation without plotting our own course and following our own path.
I suppose that comes back down to strategy, though, doesn't it? Yep. I mean, you've got to be able to ask the question as company leaders. What are we set up to do? Why are we here, and where do we want to go? What's our goal? What's our strategy? And then everything underneath that should be leaning towards that. Yep. And really, your strategy should be individual to your organization and what you're trying to do.
Exactly.
As opposed to, matching what somebody else's strategy is.
Yeah. And there's probably plenty of examples of companies who just quickly follow what other people do.
Yeah.
They do the hard work by delivering an innovation, and we just move into that quickly and take on that idea. And I kind of think the pharmaceutical industry is a little bit like that in some senses, where we've just seen that with the vaccine that Pfizer have made loads of money from. It's basically delivered by another company, Moderna, but they have the wherewithal. Pfizer has the wherewithal for the global distribution and scale up of that product. So they're not really doing the innovative thing. They're looking at what Moderna are doing and effectively partnering with them in the end to bring that innovation to life. I'm not sure that's the best example, but obviously with my background, those are the only ones I can think of. We have that slide in some of the stuff we do from LinkedIn, which is a picture of a load of white SUVs.
The cars. Yeah.
And basically the article says, look, if you just follow what your competitors do, go to the same trade shows, speak to the same consultants, this is what happens. And it's basically a picture of 15 SUV cars, all white, all look exactly the same. If you kind of squint your eyes, they've just got a different badge.
I might try and post that image up while on the video while
better than me trying to
we're talking about it. But it's a really good point. Yeah, I love that slide because I love the fact that I can't remember how many cars are on there, but there's 20 cars or something, and they all look identical. Just silhouettes of cars, and that's a perfect example of copying. And not really setting your own mark or making your own. And
I've explained this. I've experienced this in the real corporate world, and I'm not going to use brands and names because I might want to work with those companies again in the future. I don't want to upset anyone too much, but fundamentally, I've seen like brands where the leader of an organisation has said, so and so has done this, we must do that too. we must have the fastest acting headache tablet, we must have the thinnest condom, we must have the brownest shoes, we must have the greenest car. Just because somebody else has done it, that's not always a good enough reason to do it. That shouldn't be driving our innovation. Obviously, it's changing the benchmark, and we need to meet that benchmark over time, but it shouldn't really change our innovation strategy, because we should be brave enough to have our own course and plot that out and make it happen.
Is this really what defines a good leader, actually, within a business? One that kind of goes in with a vision and says, okay, this is where I want to take the business, and I want you to take you all along with us. This is what we want to achieve. Versus one that comes in and says, well, let's keep it as risk-free as possible and just stay the course with what the rest of the industry is doing. Is that what defines good leadership?
Yeah, well, I think we talk about culture and we talk about innovation and leadership as well, don't we? And I think the best organisations are going to have a culture and a leadership that allows people to go off in different directions to surprise the industry, and inevitably that's going to lead to risk and failure and cost and career suicide and all of those good things. But equally, it can also lead to a brand new business that's creating value for the longevity of that organisation. And if you're not doing that, then you're at risk of being disrupted by somebody else in your sector doing it. So to me, there's a carrot for taking these risks, and that is the longevity of your business and growing into new sectors and new product areas that your customers need. And you're not going to get there necessarily just by following up what competitors are doing.
If you essentially follow the market and you sort of play it safe and you're essentially keeping pace with what the market's doing, which we said earlier on, some of that's worth doing because it's good hygiene, to make sure you're staying on par with what your competitors are doing. But as long as you're in that position, the follower position, fundamentally you're always going to be at the risk of the success of the person you're following.
Yeah, exactly.
Really.
Yeah. And there is a caveat to this. We mentioned at the beginning that there's nothing wrong with copying. Copy with pride, borrow people's ideas, but try and do that from outside of your sector. So someone does something in a different sector that's quite cool and uses new technology or creates a new business model or something, bring that into your sector. To me, that's the smarter thinking. Yeah. We don't have to reinvent the wheel every 5 minutes, but looking outside to bring ideas in is valuable. And you could call that copying. So I don't want to sound hypocritical. It's just a balance of these things, really.
Yeah.
Plot your own course and do the cool stuff, but equally take the easy wins. And for me, try to bring in stimulus from outside of your sector. Talk to different people, and that's a way of leapfrogging, I think.
Yeah. All right, that's really interesting. See you for the next one.
See you, Wayne.